is it that plant managers need to know about situational leadership? I'm Greg Schenkel, President of Unique Training and Development and Frontline Leadership Systems, and today we're going to look at this topic that many of you probably have heard before called situational leadership. And the myth that we have to deal with is that many leaders believe there's just one way of doing something, and I'm just going to keep using that leadership approach no matter what the situation. But the fact is, there isn't just a one-size-fits-all when it comes to your leadership approach. And in fact, it needs to be tailored a little bit to each team member, and I'm going to explain how that works. The leadership team at one of the production facilities we were working for was very hands-off in their leadership approach. They would basically bring you in, have great confidence in you, and say, throw you in the deep end and hope that you could learn things over time. And they would almost take great pride into saying, hey, we were all thrown in the deep end. We all figured things out. It'll all work out in the end. We know you can do it. And you might say, well, that's not bad. I mean, people do learn from that kind of adversity. But what they found is that the team members got a lot of stress as they kind of wandered around trying to figure things out, asking each other for tips and getting very little structure and guidance from their supervisor. So what we suggested to the team of leaders is we said, your people actually need to have a little bit more direction and hands-on initially to build up their confidence and capabilities over time. So the team went through some development sessions with us, and then what they learned is that the leader actually should adjust their approach depending on the task proficiency of the employee or team member. So for example, if I'm new to a task, even if I've worked in the organization for a while, I'm going to need someone to explain things in a little bit more detail initially, and then to slowly withdraw and allow me to act more on my own over time. So when you realize that really situational leadership is just being more directive at first and then slowly becoming more supportive and then finally allowing the person to work mostly independently, you'd say, oh, okay, so that's a way of getting employees to feel more confident and capable, and also to have them feel secure and not feel that they're left adrift trying to figure things out for themselves. So I've got a few tips for how you can improve plant manager situational leadership. Tip number one is to understand situational leadership. And of course, we actually cover the topic in a couple of different ways in our program. One way we talk about is more like being autocratic versus being more coach-like. But there's a different way that you can look at situational leadership. If you look at it on the employee's task proficiency, you would realize that you become more directive up front and then more supportive over time. Now, that leads into tip number two, which is to assess the task proficiency of your team members. And that means looking at each individual on a team to say, okay, how good are they at the tasks that I've assigned them? Are they good enough to work independently, completely alone, or are they new to the task, in which case I, as the leader, need to become much more specific in giving direction that will help them be successful in that task over time. So remember, it's not just whether the person's a good person, it's related to the task that you've assigned to them and how confident and capable they are at that task. And then the third tip is really to practice a different approach. The reality is probably 60% of leaders only use one style and never use any other approach. So even if you could add one more style into your mix, maybe you start to be a little bit more directive with newer employees or people who are new to the task and become more supportive to the ones who are experienced, just adding one more skill set to your repertoire as a leader can be quite effective. So practicing a different approach and just being more conscious of the situational leadership approach that you are using. Now, once you've figured out this concept of situational leadership as a plant manager, or really as a leader at any level in the organization, you're going to want to work on some of the other leadership skills that will make you excellent and the kind of boss that employees want to be loyal to and want to work for and do their best. So we, of course, have our Frontline Leadership program, which is 3 days or 6 half days of content that you can mix and match as you need to. And of course, that can be delivered on site using conventional classroom training, or if it works out better logistically or because of COVID restrictions, you can use our tremendous high-tech multi-camera virtual training studio. No matter what your preference is, it all starts, of course, with a conversation, and that conversation can happen by visiting our website at uniquedevelopment.com. Once we talk about your situation and the solution that will fit, I think you're going to see us as this kind of resource that can work alongside you over time to build a rock-solid, confident, capable, and consistent leadership team.